eternal secret of the earth and one of the most mysterious phenomena, teleportation. Science fiction heroes sometimes find themselves trapped in another dimension. The same usually happens in the heroes of science fiction television series such as Twilight Zone or Star Trek, Millennium, The X-Files, Sci-Factor, and others. Many people have an intuitive idea of what the term means, but it's difficult to define. You can't take a trip to another dimension because the other dimensions are not separated from ours by any distance. Other dimensions, if they exist, surround us. They cannot be seen, heard, perceived, or measured unless you leave this dimension and enter another. In The Strange Mystery of Time and Space, English writer and collector of entertaining and unexplained facts Harold T. Wilkins writes, "There is, so to speak, a hole in the wall, or, in order to expand the metaphor, funnels in matter through which certain people of all social classes and ranks, animals and objects, willy-nilly and completely unexpectedly can pass, and from which there is or is not a path back to the world from where they were teleported." Teleportation. This term was coined by Charles Fort in order to describe the phenomenon of transferring objects from one place to another without the apparent use or participation of physical force. Over the centuries, a large amount of material has been collected on this issue, telling about how people, other living beings and objects are sometimes transported over long distances, as they say, in the blink of an eye. We want to talk about an incident described in Spanish sources, moreover legal ones, which were found by the astronomer and writer Mrs K Jessup, one of the first who began to study unidentified flying objects. The name of MK Jessup is inextricably linked with the Philadelphia experiment. After receiving an anonymous letter from a man claiming to be a witness to the tragedy, Jessup began to investigate in earnest. Sometime later he was found dead at the wheel of a car, the engine of which was idling, and a hose on the muffler was inserted into the cabin. The death of Jessup was considered a suicide by alcohol. A large dose of alcohol was found in his blood, although his friends later claimed that Jessup did not drink alcohol because he was taking potent medications. Controversy over the death of MK Jessup continues to this day. So about the incident described in Spanish sources, moreover legal ones, which were found by the astronomer and writer Mrs K Jessup, one of the first who began to study unidentified flying objects, we're talking about the trial of the Inquisition over a soldier who unexpectedly appeared on October 25, 1593 in the city of Mexico City, although his regiment was stationed 9,000 miles from Mexico in the Philippines. Can you believe that? He could only report that a few moments before his arrival in Mexico City, he was on guard duty at the palace of the governor in Manila, Philippines, who had just been treacherously killed. How he himself appeared in Mexico City, the soldier had no idea. A few months later, people who arrived by ship from the Philippines confirmed the news of the murder of the governor and other details of the soldier's story. In his book, 1962, The Silent Road, the Black Magician and late Major Wellesley Tudor Pole recounted a teleportation incident that happened to him. In December 1952, I got off the train at a commuter station about a mile and a half from my home in Sussex. The train from London arrived late. The bus had apparently left, and there was no taxi. The rain continued pouring down. It was 5:59 p.m., and at 6 o'clock they were supposed to call me from abroad, and it was a very important call for me. The situation seemed hopeless. And what was really bad was that the telephone at the station did not work because there was some damage on the line. Desperate, I sat down on a bench in a waiting room and began comparing the time on my clock and the station clock, considering that at the station the clock always runs a couple of minutes ahead. I decided that the exact time was 17 hours 57 minutes, that is, In other words, there were still 3 minutes left until 6 o'clock. What happened next I can't explain. When I came to, I was standing in the lobby of my house, which was a good 20 minutes walk away. At this time the clock again began striking 6. The phone rang a minute, and after I finished my conversation, I realized that something very strange had happened, and then, to my great surprise, I saw that my shoes were dry, where there was no dirt on them, and my clothes were also completely dry. It should be assumed that Major Pole was somehow mysteriously transferred to his home, for he really wanted to be at home, and he needed to be at home, and he made no conscious effort to do this. If it could happen so spontaneously, then why can't teleportation happen by will? And here witches, spiritualists, or for example the following case which caused ridicule at one time come to mind. The medium Mrs Goopy, who weighed about 100 kilograms, was instantly transferred on June 3, 1871 from her home in Highbury, London, to a house on Conduit Street 3 miles from the first. Moreover, she landed in a negligee right on the table at the time of the séance. Over the past decades, there have been many reports of involuntary teleportation, mainly related to UFOs. Many of these are recounted in John Keel's book, Our Haunted Planet, 1971. For example, Geraldo Vidal in May 1968 was driving with his wife in the Bahia Blanca area of Argentina. Suddenly they found themselves in Mexico, thousands of miles from this place. They had no idea where they were or how they got there. The only sign that something had happened to them was the scorched body of their car. Another case described by Jerome Clark and Lauren Coleman in the book The Unidentified, Notes Towards Solving the UFO Mystery, occurred with 24-year-old Jose Antonio da Silva, who on May 9, 1969, was near the city of Vitória in Brazil, in the state of shock, in torn clothes at a distance of 500 miles from Bebedour, where he was 4 days ago. His story that he was captured by 4 tall creatures, 120 centimeters, by 4-foot tall creatures, that's pretty short, transported to another planet and then returned to Earth, sounded unrealistic, but this case, like many other similar incidents, was thoroughly investigated. After that, there was no doubt that Da Silva believed in what he was talking about. An important feature of all cases of teleportation associated with UFOs is the return of the victim in a state of shock, trance, and semi-amnesia, which fully coincides with the stories in which it was about the abduction of people by fairies in earlier times. As you can see, some cases of teleportation occurred spontaneously, without obvious outside interference, while others, on the contrary, were clearly controlled, albeit unconsciously, by the will of certain people with a high nervous organization. In the Middle Ages, no one doubted the existence of occult forces. The further we look into the depths of the centuries and the time of witches and sorcerers, up to the all-powerful magicians of the ancient civilizations, the more we get confirmation of the alleged cases of controlled teleportation and magical flights. Although this phenomenon is not recognized by science, it nevertheless happens every now and then, but instead of flying mystics and transport of multi-ton stone columns through the air, we hear about flying cars or about an incomprehensible couple who find themselves in Mexico at the time when they were supposed to be in Argentina. Phenomena in Portugal. Every day at exactly 4 o'clock on the slope of one of the hills, it starts to rain. After an hour, it stops. This happens daily with the regularity of clockwork, but the most incomprehensible thing is that it happens with a completely clear sky. There are no clouds, and it's raining. Scientists invited from Lisbon could only confirm but not explain, or even somehow comment on this strange and regularly recurring phenomenon. We're attracted by the unknown. How to explain hundreds and thousands of cases where people disappear for no reason and then reappear, but in a different place and unexpectedly for themselves. Undoubtedly, a qualitative breakthrough in human understanding of time travel is coming soon. It's inevitable and will certainly become one of the greatest discoveries of mankind. And this is on Soul Ask. Please leave your comments and thank you for your support. Please support my Patreon account. The daily posts are 5 videos daily, and they are totally different from what I have on my YouTube channel. Thank you so much for your support and that you find all my content so interesting. You'll find the Patreon account details in the description box below.